Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great Global Hack Week so far. If you came from Newful Stream, feel free to drop a message down in chat and mention something that you enjoyed. But we are joined today with someone who is incredibly cool. His name is Vincent, and he is an AWS cloud developer and developer advocate. And he's going to be presenting something really cool today. Basically talking about AWS AI tools like AWS Bedrock and Amazon Q. So I guess this man needs no introduction. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, feel free.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Hi, everyone. So as Ryan already explained, my name is Vincent, and I'm super excited to be here. So we're going to be doing something very fun today. We'll be looking at some of the GenAI tools that Amazon have, and we'll be focusing on Amazon Bedrock. We'll see how Amazon Bedrock actually helps us build stuff without struggles. And we're also going to look at how we can actually utilize the Amazon Q in our IDE. Precisely, we'll be using Visual Studio Code for that to see how we can actually make our code better, preview our code, and tell Amazon Q to, hey, come on, look at this code and show us what we can improve, and Amazon Q can actually help us do that. So if you're hearing about Amazon Bedrock for the first time, I'll just give you a brief introduction of what Amazon Bedrock is, and I will just walk you through everything we are going to do today. So firstly, Amazon Bedrock, think about it like a shelf book where you have different types of books that you can put in there. So for Amazon Bedrock, you have a lot of companies who have already built models that you can utilize. So all you have to do is come and take these models and plug it into your AI or your applications, and boom, you can be able to do whatever you want to do with it. I mean, these are tools. We have like the ones built by Amazon themselves. We have the ones built by companies like Anthropic. We can also have the Clued, models right there in Bedrock. So we're going to look at all that. We're going to look at how we can, experiment with that on the AWS console. We can play with that, see how it works. And then we also look at how we can actually use that in our application. So we're going to build a very fun application. Our application does very simple thing. It helps you to prepare for an interview. So for example, you are interviewing for a cloud developer role. So all you have to do is put a title of, the title of the role you want to interview for, and it will give you samples of questions that you should expect in the real world exam, in the real world interview. And then it also asks you to answer a basic question. So more like one of the possible questions that you'll be asked, it asks you how will you answer this question in real life. So you go ahead and answer the question, and then it gives you a feedback, more like it rates your own answer, and points out your strengths and weaknesses, and then gives you like a feedback on things you can improve. So we'll be looking at all that right now. So for a start, I will walk us step by step how we can actually go ahead on the AWS console, register the AWS Amazon Bedrock, and then we can see how we can create an IAM user and give that IAM user a full Amazon Bedrock access. And then finally, we try to experiment on the Amazon Bedrock on the console. Once we are done with that, then we can look at the other side of working with the API, from the back end using Node.js and JavaScript, and then powering it on our front end. So super excited. So let's get started. I'm just gonna share my screen right now. And if you want to follow along, and if you already have an AWS account, you can just go ahead and open the console. If you don't, you can also go ahead and create an account while we are here. So it shouldn't take much time. So you can just go to console.aws.amazon.com. If you don't have an AWS account, you can just go ahead and go to Amazon console.aws.amazon.com and create an account. It should be super fast and you should be good to go. So once you create an account, Amazon Q, it's Amazon gives you a lot of free trials. AWS actually give you a lot of free trials. You can actually experiment with the tools, before you decide if you want to pay for them. So you can sign up for the free trial and you can experiment with some of these tools. So once you log into the console, you have very similar interface, just like what I have on my screen right now. And we can search for Amazon Q or Amazon, any Amazon services at all we want. We can make use of the search bar right here. So in our case, we just want to search for the Amazon. We can just search for Bedrock. We don't need to type the whole keyword. So you can see Amazon Bedrock here. You can just go ahead and click on the service. Okay, so you should have a similar interface. And Ryan, is there a way I can know if people are following up on the so they can follow me along step by step? Anyway, so if you log into the AWS console, you should have a similar interface when you search for the Amazon Bedrock. So the first thing you need to do is register the models, get access to the models. So you need to request for access, to AWS what you want to do, what you want to use the models for, because they want to make sure, that you are using it for the good cause and not for any negative impact. So on the Amazon Bedrock interface right here on the console, scroll all the way down where you have the Bedrock configuration and click on model access. So I've already requested for access before now, but all you have to do, you should see an option here. This will change from modify model access to request model access. So when you click on that, you should be able to select the models that you want to get access to. So they have a lot of models here, a whole lot of models you can choose from Amazon, from A1 and 2 labs. They have different models from different companies. They also have from Anthropic, where you can have the cloud models. So they have a whole lot of models from different companies, Meta, DeepSeek. So you can select the models you want to. I mean, you can do a little bit of research on what model you want to build, with, and you can just specifically select those models, or you can also grant access to all models. So if you want to experiment with the whole models, you can just go ahead and select all of it. I mean, you can always edit the models you want to make use of at the end of the day. Okay, so once you do that, they'll ask you to give a little bit of description, like your company and the description of what you want to do, what you are building with these models. So you can just give a bit description. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I mean, you can just say you're a student and you're just experimenting. You just give a description. Maybe when you have the company name, it could just be your nickname or whatever you want, or your future company. Then just put a description of what you're trying to build with these models, or what you're trying to experiment. So once you've done that, just go ahead and click on. You should see something similar like next, or grant access, and it will take a few minutes, maybe like 5 minutes or less. They will check automatically they're going to grant you access, but it takes some few minutes, like 3, 4, 5 minutes, and they will grant you access to most of the models. And then you should also receive an email also, with the models that have been granted access to. So once you have done that, you should be able to use the models and play along with the models, see how the models actually work. So let's look at, once you have done that, I'm just gonna pause for a little bit. So if anybody's following along, they could just have that few seconds or few minutes, to follow along, register the models. And just to know that they won't give you access to all the models. So models, you need to be in a specific region, based on your AWS account region settings before you can get access to them. And some are unavailable in some regions, while some are available in most regions. Something I forgot to mention: make sure that you are mostly on the US East one. This is where you have most of the models. On the US East one, you have most of the models accessible to you. Yes, so AWS is free. I mean, you have free trial. So you have free trial, so you can make use of the AWS free trial if you want to experiment. So they give you free trial, and I mean, if you're registering, most of the time they may ask you to enter your credit card for registration. They may not, but it's actually basically free unless you exceed the free trials. So they give you access to free trial. You can experiment with some of the resources they have. Okay, so just go ahead. So once you have registered the models you want to make use of, you can look at the playground options here. So we can play with the models right here on the console. So you don't need to leave the console to play with the models. So you can select a mode you want to use in a chat. You can select a single prompt. So a chat more like you are having an interactive, interaction with. Just think about it when you're interacting with a human being like you. You're telling it what to do. So it's more like an interactive prompt. More like an interactive prompt. You are telling the AI what to do, and you guys are like interacting and having that conversation. Then you have to select a model. So I'm just going to play along with the cloud legacy version 1 point or version 2.1. I'll just go ahead and stick with the version 2. So you can play with all the models here, one after the other, to see how it works, which one is faster, which one suits what you want to build. So this actually gives you access. It's just the playground where you can just play before you can decide what you want to go ahead and build, which one gives you more accurate results, and so forth. Okay, so I'm just gonna paste a very simple prompt here. Give me 1 second.
I guess while we're waiting, we have another
Okay,
question.
so I'm gonna ask, yeah, so I'm gonna ask you to act like a hiring manager interviewing a front-end developer, and I'm going to ask you to ask 5 technical questions. Just click on run that. Okay, so it just runs in real life. Ask you like possible 5 questions a hiring manager could ask you. I'm just going to give you a clue of it's also prompt engineering, right? You're interacting with it, telling it what to do, and just keep interacting to see if it's giving you an accurate result of what you want to do or not. You can always change models and just keep experimenting. Uh, so I'm just going to ask you to give me feedback on some of the questions I'll ask. So, example question is: can you explain the difference between client-side and server-side development? Let's say you choose to answer this question. I'm just gonna play along here, say not sure. Uh, So just giving you a sample of what you're trying to build. So you're trying to be like an interview coach, where you ask it to give you 5 questions, probably from a specific role, let's say front-end engineer, and then it gives you the questions, and then you try to answer the questions, and then you ask it to give you feedback based on the answers you have given it. So you answer this, then it gives you feedback and what you can improve overall. You have the right idea in your answer, but the difference between blah blah blah, and then it try to give you how you could have answered the question, or give you like the definition of what it is and what is not. So you can more like experiment, give it what you want it to do. You can also specify the length of the questions it can take and all that. Give me 1 second. For the system prompt, you can add the whole prompt. So basically, for this particular interface, you can add like an interview manager, add like an hiring manager asking 5 questions. You can all add those prompts here, or the system prompt, how you want the prompt or the responses to behave. I want you to respond in a certain tone, on a certain tone. You can just give it an overview of how you want it to behave, basically. Okay, and of course, if you want to see how the different model could answer the questions, you can also, just change the category, change the configuration, select a different model, a different company, and then a different model, and then you can just experiment. Okay. So I'm just gonna leave this for a while, and I want us to look at how we can actually use this in real life. More like, let's say we are building our own project, and we want to plug in the Amazon Bedrock into our project. We want to specify what we want it to do and how we want it to behave, right? So let's look at that. So when building or when using AWS, building applications on AWS, there's what we call less privilege. So what that means is giving access to who needs access. So you need to make sure that if you're creating a project, you want that project to have access to Amazon Bedrock. Just make sure that you're creating a security key for that, and make sure that the IAM user, so by IAM, that's the application, the access management, have access to just that particular resources you wanted to use. And just give you a real life example. So you work in a company, and there are rooms you can't enter because they are not accessible to you. So you have the smart card to access a specific rooms, and that smart card only gives you access to those rooms. So the same thing applies when you're working with cloud infrastructures, or when you're building applications on the cloud. You want to make sure that you give access to the resources you only need. So that will take us to creating an IAM user for our demo today. So we're going to look at how we can create an IAM user, and how we can assign a policy to that IAM user, and how we can now use that IAM user, in our future product, in our future project, which is the demo we'll be looking at very soon. So still from the AWS console, you can just go to the the search bar right here and search for IAM, manage access resources, click on IAM. Anyway, IAM is a very powerful resource when it comes to not just AWS but cloud, generally. And this has to do with every other thing you're working with in your life. Whether you're building a project, whether you're, whatever you're building, any language you're using, it's not language specific. When you don't get your IAM configurations right, you're going to see yourself, in a bad situation in the future. There have been a trend of applications being hacked. Some applications that were hosted on AWS. Where maybe a junior engineer made some mistakes, published the environment keys in GitHub and stuff like that. And most of the time, they didn't just get the security aspect of their development correctly, which is very, very important when you're building stuff. You want to make sure that you get the access management correctly, because this is, if you can't access a specific application because you don't have access, it's very difficult for a breach to happen. So, for example, you have an AWS account, you have engineers working in your team or other people working in your team. You want them to be able to perform a specific task. So when you create an IAM account for them, you want to make sure that you're giving them just what they need. Just give them access to what they need. So if their job description is to create, let's say, launch ES tools or maybe use S3 bucket, you want to make sure that you're giving them the policies for that, right? So when you go ahead and give them a full access management policy, this is where problems start. This is where companies get it wrong sometimes. You give someone who does not need access to the resources, you give access to the resources. So at the end of the day, if there's a breach, from this particular user, it affects the whole organization. So IAM is a very powerful tool, and it controls mostly every other aspects of your cloud infrastructure and applications. So we're going to see how we can actually create one IAM user and then give it access policy to Amazon Bedrock, because we just want this user to access Amazon Bedrock. We don't want it to do any other thing apart from Amazon Bedrock. So what that means is, if you're building an application and what this application does, it accesses Amazon Bedrock to do a specific task, create an IAM user, give it access policy for that specific task. So even when someone tries to breach the applications and stuff, it's not going to affect the other aspects of your resources in the cloud. It will just affect that particular resource that you have given access to at the end of the day. Okay. So from your AWS console search bar, just search for IAM. You should have a similar interface, just like what I have right here. You can go ahead and click on users on the left panel, or you can click on users right here. Okay, so once you're right here, go ahead and click on create user. So you can create a new user, give the user a name. So I just call this MLH stream. And you have options. So when you're building applications, and these applications are just going to be interacting, through APIs, you don't need to give them a console access. So the console access is what we are having in the interface right here. You log into the console, you log in with your details, and you can access, the UI, the interface. So if you don't need that, if it's more for an application, not for a user, they'll be performing tasks on the console. Then you don't need to give them access to the console. So you can just go ahead and make sure you don't check this, so they don't have access to the console. So you just want this user to perform tasks programmatically, either from the CLI or from a programming language. Okay. So we have things we call user groups, but we're just going to focus on permission and policies directly. So we want to attach a policy to this user. And for that, we're just going to choose attach policy directly. And then we're going to specify the policy that we want to attach. You can see we have a lot of policies here. These policies give you access to the resources they are named after. Example, we have the administrator access. When you give someone administrator access, they have access to almost everything you have as an administrator in the AWS console. Does that mean they can do anything? They can access the billing stuff like that. They can see all the whole resources in the console and the management. So in our case, we just want to focus on Bedrock. So you can just search for the keyword Bedrock. And we just want to give this policy or this user Amazon Bedrock full access so they can do anything with the Bedrock API. So once you have done that, go ahead and click on next. You can leave other options at default and create the user. Okay, so once you have this user created, Amazon Stream right here, you still need to generate what we call an access key, the secret key and the access key that it can use programmatically, to talk to the Amazon console. So you want to communicate with the Amazon console from your applications. So to do that, click on create access key right here. And then you have a lot of options. Most of them, they can actually work hand in hand. For example, if you select command line interface, and you select that, or you select local code, they probably work the same way, because at the end of the day, you're trying to communicate through an application which is still going to run through the console. So I'll just go ahead and choose local code. Though they'll attempt to give you a different option on how you can actually use it, for more security. Yeah, but I'm aware of that. I can just confirm that, and I can go ahead with that for now. You can, put a tag if you want, or you can leave that optional. So this creates an access key and a secret key and a secret access key for you. Just to let you know, this is a one-time page that comes up. So it's either you copy the access key and the secret key right here, or you go ahead and download it. So once you exit from this page, you will not have access to the access key and the secret key again. So you have to recreate the user if you want to get the access key. Or other ways, you can regenerate an access key. So you can go ahead and download that as a CSV file, and you can, once you've done that, you can then click on done. So with this key, you'll be able to access the Amazon Bedrock, because that's the policy we have given it. So this particular user have access to the Bedrock. Okay. So once we have done that, I think we are good to go, like looking at programmatically how we can use this in our applications. Okay. So I already have this application on GitHub, and Ryan, you can drop it so that everybody can look at the code, follow along, and we can see how we actually come up with the solution. Okay, so I'm gonna open my Visual Studio Code. I already have this wrapped up, but what I'm gonna do is this. We're gonna look at, I'm just gonna start these applications, and we're going to play with it, and then we're gonna come back and look at the code and see what we're doing and how we did it. So I'm just gonna start this. So let's look at what we actually did, and then we come back to explain how we did it and how we can achieve the same goal. So I'm finding this out from so I have a very unique UI right here, and just to tell you, every single thing like the UI, these styles, we are really built with Amazon Q, and it's really didn't take me up to 30 minutes to, less than 30 minutes, to build the whole interface using Amazon Q. So the functionality of this app is to help you prepare for an interview. So it's a smart interview coach. So what it does is you enter the job title you are interviewing for. So example, let's say cloud developer. You select a personnel. So, you're trying to You're trying to, interviews, we go through stages of interviews. Sometimes a recruiter reaches out to you first, a hiring manager, then technical interview. So if you want to like have the interview personnel of these categories, what if I'm applying for a cloud developer role and a recruiter is reaching out and I'm having the first interview with the recruiter, kind of questions I'm expecting from the recruiter. So you can choose the personnel, you can create and generate interview questions. So it takes few seconds. Let's see. Okay, so I'm logging the responses on my console too, so that I know when something goes wrong. Okay, so this is what we have. So it generates like five possible questions that a recruiter could be asking you if you are interviewing for a cloud developer role. So you have this, you have that. So what experience do you have working with platforms like this, that, and that? And then it also gives you an ideal answer. I mean, we can do better with the interface, like separating the question and ideal answer here. Yeah, we can see how we can actually do that using Amazon Q or change some things. But then it gives you an ideal answer of what you should answer when such questions comes to you. Then if you want to more like don't go with the ideal answer, you have your own personal answer you have already prepared. So for example, it asks, so how do you monitor and log cloud deployments to ensure high availability? So let's isolate this particular question and I want to give it my own answer. And like, I use tools like Prometheus, okay, like CloudWatch for start, Prometheus, to keep track of the things. So you can like give it your own answer of possible response you could have given the recruiter, if this was a real life interview, and you want to know what he thinks about it. If you get feedback. Okay, so it rates your answer. So more like you're practicing the interview. So it rates your answer. Okay, I'm gonna give you 8/10 based on the response you gave, and it gives you your strengths and weaknesses. So, for example, you mentioned using native cloud platform tools like CloudWatch, Prometheus, which are commonly used for this purpose. Specifically calls out setting alarms and threshold, which is important. Then it gives you like weaknesses, things you can have improved. Doesn't mention setting up login and aggregating logs for analysis. This is an important part of monitoring. Doesn't provide details, So it not tells you this is how you could have answered this question, in real life, so that you can actually impress the recruiter or the interviewer. So I use native cloud platform tools like this and that to promote metrics and set alarms for critical threshold lights. So this is more like an interview coach app. And behind the scene, what is going on is we're just taking inputs and we are giving it to AWS Amazon Bedrock, which we have specified the model we want to use. And it uses that model. And at this point, we're just using the Cloud 2 model. It just uses that model to do what we have asked it to do. So firstly, we experiment on the console, what we are trying to build and how it can come up, what we want it to be. We look at the tune it gives. If we are good with that, if you are good with the tune, then we'll know like, okay, this is the model we're going to use for our project. And then you can go ahead and use that on your project. Okay, so let's look at the code. But before then, I also added like extra stuffs. And again, all these functionalities we are built with Amazon Q, which we are going to see in a minute how Amazon Q also works. So I added extra stuff like, okay, I'm done with coaching. I want to have a report. Though it's not really smart yet, it just gives you a report of the last feedback you get. So for example, if I click on view session report, so I have the question that I selected, the answer that I gave, and then the AI feedback plus a rewrite. And you can just print that as a PDF, or you can go back to the code. So it just simply what the application does, and we were able to achieve this using Amazon Bedrock. And let's look at the code to see exactly what is going on. Okay. Uh, so we just have just front end that does some things here. The index, which is the home page we see, and the report page, then our scripts and the style.css. So, but that's not the most important aspect. Before I dive into the code, let's look at other things we need to actually also be careful from a security perspective when you're developing, right? You want to make sure that you are not pushing your environment variables to AWS. Sorry, to GitHub. So make sure that they are always in the environment variable. So for example, yeah, I can just show this. I'll delete the IAM user after the stream. So you just have the access key, you have the secret key, and we're specifying the region we want to deploy or we want to call, from. So make sure that these things are not going to a public view. So for example, make sure they are not going to GitHub or Gitbucket, in public repositories. Even if it's a private repository, best practices, make sure they are always, ignored in the Git ignore. So measure of that so that you don't end up exposing your environmental keys. One thing you should always do is if it's a public repository, you want people to actually see how you styles and how you position your environment variable. You can just create a sample variable where you can just put that so people can look at that and see how it works. Okay, so let's look at the code. It's just one file that does every single thing that we want it to do. So we're using Express.js, which is a Node.js framework, and we're just using the other modules like .NET, Cross, and then we are calling the Bedrock runtime client. You can look at how that works when you go to, give me 1 second. So you look at similar examples on how to use the SDK for the Node.js. So it gives you a view of how you can install it, and examples if you're using ES2 or if you're using ES5 or ES6. Different examples of how you can use it, and it also gives you a usage. You can specify the client, the region, and then the parameters and the commands. If you're using asynchronous await, it just gives you the sample. So you can always look at the SDKs to see how you can actually utilize it in your applications. And of course, if you're building with Python, they also have the Python SDK, which you can, check it out and you can experiment that as well. And one other thing is whenever you're building with tools like Bedrock or any other tools at all, the most important starting point or the starting documentations are the official documentation of that project. I think that gives you a better overview of how it works. So if I go to Amazon Bedrock as a search, it gives you explanations of what this is, and you can also try the free demo. And they should have an official documentation where you can try examples of how it works. So give use cases. Give me 1 second. So I'm looking for the official documentation right here. Okay, let me browse the documentation and then search for the Amazon Bedrock. So this is always a starting point whenever you're building stuff with any tools at all. Just look for the official documentation and look at the examples and use cases. Okay, so you can start with the user guide. You can just jump into the documentation itself. But the user guide is always a good place to start. So you can read more of what you can do with the Amazon Bedrock, things you can actually experiment with it, and how you can actually get started, terms and conditions, and understand how AWS charges you for using Amazon Bedrock too. So important. So I think AWS requires you to enter your card details when you're signing up for Bedrock, when you're signing up for the console, generally. So it's important you actually read about the charges and read about the terms and conditions as well. So what that means is make sure that you read the limits. You can use the free trial for, because automatically if you pass the trial, they charge you automatically, right? So just make sure that okay, you're within your limits, so you don't pass. And if you're experimenting, just make sure you're within the limits, so you don't get charged when you overuse the resources or overuse the limit. So that's why the documentation is so important. So whenever you're using a tool, and importantly, if you're putting your credit card in the platform, make sure you read, the limit, the free trial, and what happens when you exceed, how much can be charged, and so forth. So documentation is always a good place to start. And then you can get started here where you have tutorials and use cases. If you have an AWS account already, it walks you through that step by step. If you don't, it also walks you through that step by step as well. Okay, so let's go back to the code. Let's see exactly what we did here. So for initial steps, we just importing our modules, and we're just enabling the modules as well. Most of these are just serving the static files. So this is basically where we configure our AWS Bedrock clients. So we're simply doing 3 things here. We are calling the Bedrock right here, and we are specifying the region we want to use. Of course, we already specified this region in our environment variable, so we're just calling it in, and we're also calling the access key and secret key. So this is like the most important aspect of the code base, actually, because without this, the rest of the code are not going to work, because it needs an account to look up for, and call the resources in those accounts. So this is basically what the applications are using to call, the Bedrock APIs and interact with it. So in other words, if someone should mistakenly have access to our code base, our secret keys, we are still in luck, because we only give access to this application Bedrock access. So in other words, they're not going to have access to other resources, which limits the damage, but as well, that keeps us intact. Okay, so nextly, we're just calling our helper functions, because we can name these functions anything you want to name them, but I'm calling them the cloud API. I'm just calling it cloud, and just taking a prompt and maximum token that I want. I want to make sure I'm logging some of these things on the console, so I can keep track of when something goes wrong. And then I'm specifying the model ID, just like we saw on the console. You can specify the model you want to use. You can specify if it's cloud version 2, version 3, whichever version you have experimented with, and you love the tool and what it gives you. And because I was actually using in the front end, more like I'm getting the input from the users and then giving it back, I didn't really have more like an endpoint. So I just focus on building an interface and then getting those input from interface. So which is basically what we're doing right here. We are accepting application and JSON, and we're just this is what should come on our body. The prompts, maximum token, the temperatures. Temperature is more like how fast, how slow we want it to be. Okay. Then lastly, the next step we just invoked the model, and we take the input that is coming, pass the input from the body, and return the completion to the users. So this is basically what our endpoint looks like. We're taking a job title and personnel from the request body. I also log that to my console because I want to make sure that it's working behind the scene. And then we just checking if the titles are missing or not. Then this is where we actually give it the prompt of what to do. I mean, we can always change this, how we want it to behave. So for our prompt, we're asking it to act like a persona. We already defined the persona, which is coming from our interface. So we have different personas. So we have like a recruiter, hiring manager, technical lead, or AI interview bot. So we have different personas that we can choose from, and we want our code to act based on the persona that have been choose from the interface. So this is like basically the where the prompt engineer is doing its work, because whatever we tell it to do right here is basically what it does. So we act like the persona interviewing for the job title. We give it a job title, then generate 5 relevant interview questions for each question, include a clearly labeled ideal sample answer. So this is where we actually do most of the trick, because the way you give it the prompts. So I think we are in the era of prompt engineering, where everything we just do right now is all about how we tell the AI to do its work. So you need to make sure you have experimented already on the console, and the results you are getting is actually what you want to use. Okay, so once we have that, we pass it into the results. We call our prompt, which pass the persona, and then pass the prompt to it, and then finally it returns what we have on our screen, which is the relevant questions, and then the possible ideal answers as well. Okay, and then finally, we just have where we're taking the question and answer again. This is basically the feedback side. So where we are trying to get my own answer to the question that AI has given, and then we're giving it back to it as well, asking it to check if this particular answer is good and how you can make it better and so forth. So just straightforward, very simple code. And then once we have tested the applications and maybe it's working the way we want, maybe it's not working the way we want, we can always try to make changes. For example, I don't know, if someone has an idea, you can drop on the chat what changes you think we can make, and we'll use that for our Amazon Q sample. So Amazon Q is an extension. So before now, they used to have a free trial which you can try out on the console, but they have discontinued that. So probably you can't actually try it out on the console, on the AWS console, but you can try it out on your IDE. I believe they have for VS Code, which yeah, sure they do. I think they have for Visual Studio also, and other code bases. Let me see. We can just search for Amazon Q and see where we can install it. So if you have used GitHub Assistant, GitHub Assist, it's similar to what you have here. It's similar to what you have as Q, as Amazon Q. Where you can chat. It's all about prompt engineering. You're chatting it, asking it to look at this specific file or look at the whole code base. So the same way you install other extensions in your your code base, your IDE, the same way you can install Amazon Q. But let's see where it's available. Trying to look for that. So this is basically the IDEs you can install Amazon Q on. So the Ellipse, Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, and of course Amazon Q in the AWS toolkit for Visual Studio. So Visual Studio, Studio Code, uh, Eclipse, and then JetBrains. So this is probably this is the at this time, this is just the available IDs that you can actually use Amazon Q on. So you can install it the same way you install other IDEs. So you can click on the official marketplace and go ahead and install it. You can also do that directly from your IDE. Just go to extensions and search for Amazon Q. And search for Amazon Q and just go ahead and install that. So I already have it installed. So one thing I love about Amazon Q from other code assistant is this. Amazon Q focuses more on security perspective. So if you're looking for a code assistant that is security conscious, I think Amazon Q actually beats the other assistants in the market when it comes to security, right? It focuses more on security. So when you ask it to maybe review your code, look at how we can improve this code base from a security perspective. Even when you don't ask it to look at that from a security perspective, it always does that at default. So Amazon Q is very very loud when it comes to security conscious. So it just focuses more on security. So it's better when it comes to security. So like we know GitHub Assistant is good. It does amazing thing very fast. Amazon Q does the same, but I think the big difference is when it comes to security, Amazon Q is like the top. So if you are building applications and your application you just want to focus more on security, I think you should give Amazon Q a try. So let's see how Amazon Q works. So once you install it, you basically have it somewhere here. So I have the GitHub Copilot Assistant, and then I also have Amazon Q. So what's it called? Visual Studio Code try to put both of them in one turbo chart where you can just click and you can access both of them. Either you're accessing Amazon Q here or you're accessing Visual Studio Chart from here. So you can have both of them. I can interchange your prompt, whichever one you want to make use of. So let's see Amazon Q in in action. So Amazon Q have options where you can just chat if you just want to chat with it. Ask it some things. Just possible questions and answer. And if you also want it to look at the code, that's the agentic coding on. That way, when you ask it to do something, it makes the changes automatically for you. Let me look at a possible example. I don't know if anyone dropped any example on the chat or what we can do or what you think we can change. None. Okay. So let's say I can just refresh my workspace. So when you refresh your workspace, you are just before I dive into that. So when you install Amazon Q, it asks you to authenticate, and it authenticates with your builders account. So Amazon has what we call AWS builders account, builder ID. So when you click on that, when you install Amazon Q for the first time, okay, let me try and uninstall it, and we can just try it out and see how it works from the first beginning. So I'm just gonna uninstall this. I will just install it again. It probably should have signed me out. Let me see. I could easily sign out from here. Right, let me reload the window. That should solve the problem. Okay, so this is going to take so much time. I'll just close the IDE and reopen it again. Okay, so this will take just few seconds. So while we're on that, if you have questions and if you have like an idea of what you think you can ask Amazon Q to do, the application a little bit better, you can drop that, and I can use that as an example. And another very useful function of Amazon Q is also integrated in the console. So when you are trying to do certain things on the console, if you're trying to let's say spin up an EC3, sorry, an S3 bucket, and maybe you're not getting the policies correctly, you are getting an error message. Amazon Q also, try to help you. It shows you the error message and it shows you the possible solution to the error message. So another, very, very handy tool when you're working on the console, when you're trying to do, certain things on the console. Trying to reactivate itself. Okay, I don't know why this is taking so much time, but yeah, it happens sometimes. Okay, so basically, when you install it for the first time, if you have not signed in, you should have a prompt like authenticate or re-authenticate. So when you click on that, that should open up in your browser. Let's see. This is taking so much time. Okay, so you have a prompt like this. Confirm this code in your browser. Just click on proceed to the browser. So this opens for you to authenticate on the browser.
Hi everyone. I think Vincent's internet might have cut out. He should be back momentarily. Oh, he's back.
For seconds.
No worries.
I'll just go ahead and share my screen again. Okay. So just like I mentioned earlier, so the Amazon queue asks you, so you still just have to log in with your Amazon AWS Builder ID. So not necessarily your AWS account details. So Amazon has like AWS has an Builder ID which can actually use to interact with some of the resources like Amazon Q. So if you already have an ID, you can just go ahead and sign in like you already have an ID. But if you don't, you can just create a new one, from afresh. But I already have an ID here, so I'll just go ahead and authenticate with my existing ID. Now, I'm not trying to create one. I'm trying to log in with the existing one. Okay, I'm just going to try this again. So re-authenticate, just cancel this, re-authenticate. Ah, okay, so that's basically all you have to do. So you just have to authenticate with your AWS builder ID. So it's different from your Amazon. It's different from your Amazon console login details. So if you don't have that, first time you're clicking on the authenticate, it gives you option to create new one. You can just use your email address, create a new one and password, and then you can authenticate. So once you do that, you will have access to Amazon Q right here. So just to mention another thing, like I say, it's actually from a security perspective. So Amazon Q automatically checks for any security issues you may have in the code, and just gives you if it is a code issue. And of course, you can just go ahead and chat, ask it to do a specific thing. So I'm just gonna let's try a different thing. Oh, okay, this is not gonna work. I'll look at this from the UI perspective. So we have this. Let me see. So this is what we have, and yeah. Also, I used Amazon Q to enable the dark mode and stuff. So you can actually basically tell you to do anything you want to. I'm just gonna ask it to make the application more sleek and modern. Then when you want it to actually look at a specific folder, you can specify that folder you actually want it to look at. Then if you want it to give you like a general, you know, look at the whole code base, you can also specify that using the symbol. Then you can specify the folders or a particular file or a specific code. So in this case, I just want it to focus on the front end folder. That's the folder I want it to focus on. So it doesn't make any changes to other side of the application. So let's see the magic it does. So it will update the front end to make it more sleek, modern, and add animations. You can always specify what you want. I think prompt engineering is just the new core right now. You specify what you want, tell it exactly what you want. Change the colors to be like this. Use this specific font. Make sure this particular button is bouncing and hover. You just have to specify what you want, and it makes those changes for you. Okay, so while we have that chat, I mean, you can have different chats going on, but I'll take it one after the other. Once you make the changes, I want to look at the changes. If it's, you know, something I like. If it's not something you like, you can like, okay, I don't like these specific styles. So I think it's all about prompt engineering, telling it what you want to do. But I want us to look at the most powerful aspect of it from security perspective. So let's wait for this prompt to run through. Then I'm going to ask it to look at my code base generally and from a security perspective, from a security point of view, tell me what it thinks and things I can improve. And also ask it to help me and improve that. So I'll just type the prompt while waiting for the other prompt to complete. This time I want you to look at my whole code base. If I have, let's say, my .env, and I don't have like a git ignore, it will catch it. It will actually catch that. Hey, you have a .env file, but you don't have like a git ignore. That means if you push that to GitHub, it's gonna be publicly exposed. And it can also does that. When you kind of give it this prompt like, hey, look at my whole code base, make sure everything is the way they're supposed to be from a security point of view. So it made some changes to my CSS. It added 222 lines of code and removed 93. And now it's making changes to the script.js. Okay, so while we're waiting for that, I'll just go ahead and ask it to check the entire code base for any security fault. And if any, correct it. And also tell me what you find and what you improved. So we want to make sure when we're using AI, we actually know the changes it's making, because sometimes AI, is just a tool, and in as much as it could make changes the way you want it to, sometimes it could also add its own extra kind of bonus code to your code base, which maybe you don't like it, or you want it or you don't want it. So it's also important you ask it to tell you exactly what it's doing. More like explain what you have done. Go ahead and check my code base for any security faults, and if any, tell me what it is, help me fix it. But I also want to know what it was and how you fixed it as well. All right, I just want this prompt to be done before I run the other one from a security perspective. Also, I think Amazon Q has like a limit. Not really like sure the limits of my head, but I can like research about the limits. Uh, how long it could go, especially in a free is free, so it can just look at how long you can use it, in the free trial. Though they have paid trial, the developer version and the business version and enterprise version. Yeah, but mostly I haven't actually encountered any limits so far using Amazon Q, but it does have a limit. I think it can actually accommodate a lot. Okay, I can actually see some of the changes it has made. So let me refresh this page and see what changed. I see. So it's changed the color from kind of pink to blue. Okay. I'm going to test it out to see. But generally, after it makes changes, it will tell you exactly what it has changed. You know, modern color, updated the vibrant blue gradient. You know, initially just give you a rundown of the changes it has made, and of course the code basis it has changed, and you have the power to undo those changes if you experiment the changes and you don't like it. And in this case, I think I love the changes it made. It gave us a more better grid, CSS grid than what we have before. It's more like separating the question from the ideal answer. You know, add some extra lines here, which is looking so cool. So I mean, this is basically stuff you can do. I mean, you can just tell it exactly what you want it to do. I'll just go ahead and look at what are some of the important DevOps tools and how are you experienced with them. Just go ahead and see the other pages like the feedback, the changes it made. Okay, let's see what we have. So it's always good when it makes changes, you test it out, make sure it's working as expected, because sometimes it could develop a problem. It could like go and make some changes to the code you already wrote, which is not what you want. Okay, but so far I think everything we want is working. And maybe you love the color or you don't love the color, you can always go back and like, okay, change this particular sessions, make it looks more like this or more like that. Okay, let me look at the session reports. Let me see. Okay, I think it added kind of some changes too. Like the question added some padding here and borders, which is looking cool. And then there was this animation when you visit the page. Yeah. So I mean, this is like cool stuff that you can actually use Amazon Q for. So far, I think I love the changes it has made. So I can just go ahead and keep those changes. And then I'll go ahead and run the other prompts because I want it to look at the server side of the code as well. So in other words, I wanted to look at the whole code base, both from the front end and the back end, and tell me what it thinks about the security from a security point of view. So it analyze the code base for security vulnerabilities and suggest improvements. So it will take some time, but yeah. Okay, so it made changes to my .env. Though, let me see. So it says the env file contains an actual AWS credentials, yes, which are committed to repository, though it's not committed to repository. So let's see what it does. I see. So it removes them. So it removes the access key and the security key. Again, like I said, AIs are not perfect. Sometimes they make mistakes. So I already have my .env and I did not commit it to the repository because I already included it in the .env right here, gitignore. So it was never in the repository, in the public repository. But then it thought it was. So it went ahead to remove the credentials itself. Again, it's just caring for you from a security perspective. It's making sure that your credentials are not exposed. Because at the end of the day, you're going to launch, you're going to upload or host or deploy your application to the cloud, and you're going to use the secret vaults for it. So even the .amv here, not really necessary. I mean, it's looking at it from that perspective that it's not really necessary here because it needs to be secret. But for application for testing purpose, yeah, it's necessary. But then it's just being too critical and too security conscious, which is not bad. Uh, Again, it looks at removing hard-coded credentials and using the SDK default credential provider chain for better security. Let's look at exactly what it did. Okay, so it removes the credentials I'm referencing here, and basically what it's trying to do is, so if it's assuming you're going to be deploying this application to the cloud, in other words, you'll be configuring the credentials there. So the AWS Bedrock SDK will automatically look for these credentials when you deploy it. So it's looking at your application from that perspective. So it removes this clue that someone can actually know what you named your credentials from the code base. Let's see other changes it made. Restricting cross to specific origins, methods, and headers for better security. So I think before now we have cross set to all. We made it very open to every endpoint, but now it's trying to restrict it to our specific endpoint, which is very good from a security perspective. So you want to measure that this application can only be accessed from this endpoint, from the localhost 500. This is the only endpoint, and this is the method that can be performed. Instead of a get method and a post method, it's being specific of what the application does, and it doesn't want to make it widely open, wide card to every core and resources, which is good from a security perspective. Okay, so that's basically okay. Let's see if it makes any other changes. Error handling for local storage operations. Okay, let's look at that. Before that, I think it made some changes. So it's other added IP validations, and so the whole point is it to just look at the whole code base, look at things it's considered as a vulnerability, and it will make those changes for you. And of course, it will give you a definition of the changes, what it does, and why it made those changes as well. So you, from as a developer, you can look at the changes. If you want to keep them, you keep them. If you don't want to keep them, you can undo them. So and so forth. So like I said before, from a security perspective, Amazon Q does a very good job. Compared to other AI assistants. It does a very good job. So this is examples of the kind of things you can do with Amazon Q. And of course, I asked it to give me a summary of the changes it made, and it found and the fix it made. So it looked at the issues and the fix. It unrestricted cross policies, lack of input validation and sanitations, and of course, detailed error messages to the client and so forth. So it gives you a rundown of the changes it made. You can always point to the changes if you want those changes to be kept, if you don't want them to be kept, and so forth and so forth. I think it also makes changes to our HTML. Let me see. It adding content security policy meta tag and improving accessibility by allowing zooming. Okay, which is nice. Okay, so it just added some meta tags and added some security policies. So this is basically everything you need to know about using Amazon Q. I can go ahead and start exploring Amazon Q. And yeah, I think we have done justice to Amazon Q and Bedrock. And if you have questions so far on everything we have done so far, you are welcome to ask. So Ryan, I don't know if I have like questions on the chat. Yes, yeah, it does. Let's experiment that. Let's see. Okay, let's actually find out. It does. So I run into an error message on. Let me see if I can. I'm trying to break it in, and let's see how it will fix it. Uh, I'm just going to break it in. Hmm. Okay, so it cannot interact with the terminal directly in the current mode. Yeah, yeah, this is chat mode, but yes, it can when you turn it on the. I wanted to know if it can. Yes, it does. It can actually interact with your terminal directly. I actually make use of it earlier. I'm trying to find a use case. So I broke something, and I asked it to look at the error message in the terminal, and it does. So yeah, it can actually interact with the terminal directly to answer that question. So the difference between Hugging Face and Amazon Bedrock. So Hugging Face is an open source, right? But you can download Typhoon, run yourself. Great for researchers and machine learning engineers. It's free, open source. Amazon Bedrock, in other words, is not open source. It has free trial, but it's not open source. Yeah, so it's just a fully managed service on Amazon. And you just send prompts, get responses, no hosting, no tuning, just great for developers building production apps fast. So I think the difference between them is, I know this guy you can just download the models. It's open source, so you can just download the models, use the models the way you want it, train it the way you want it. In other words, in Amazon Bedrock, you are not downloading, you are not training any model, you are just doing prompt engineering. You're just training it based on the interactions. That's basically the difference. Why Hugging Face is open source, download, use as you want, train as you want, fine tune as you would like, and just host it by yourself. While Amazon Bedrock, you are not hosting it by yourself. It's already hosted. You're just calling it, via the API and make use of it in your applications. I think that's just a big difference between both of them. Do we need to sign up for? No, so they are not. Both are not. You don't need to sign up for Amazon Bedrock to use Amazon Q. Amazon Q is a service on its own. It's just an AI assistant that you can use inside your IDE. You don't even need to have an Amazon account, like an AWS console account, to use Amazon Q. You just need to have AWS Builders ID. It's just an account that gives you access to some of the free resources they have. So yeah, so you don't need Amazon Bedrock to use Amazon Q. Amazon Q is an extension AI assistant that lives on your IDEs, so you can just use it on the IDE. Why Amazon Bedrock is just the AI tool that tells you to select from different models of different companies that provide different AI models that you can use to build applications faster. So you can think of Amazon Q like your ChatGPT when you're using ChatGPT, So you can think of Amazon Q like ChatGPT, So just you can use it within your IDE. You can also turn off. I've also used. So Koso has a limit of 500 messages per month. Will you help explain the billing for Amazon Q as a bit more? Yes, I think we can look that up together. Let's see. Let's look at the pricing and the limitations. Meanwhile, the Amazon Bedrock powers Amazon Q. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Charting costs, charting about your costs. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Hmm. I'm actually not seeing any documentation on the limitations for Amazon Q. Let me see. You know what? Let's try this. I'll just go ahead and ask Q itself its limits. Okay, no cost, no additional cost with AWS account that have an active AWS support plan. No, Amazon Q separate paid tier. So I'm just looking at this particular one. Amazon Q the ID, maximum content window size for conversations, rate limits on API calls. Some features like code generation may have good quotes. For AWS Bedrock Service, I want you to focus more on Amazon Q in IDE. Okay, so I think this is basically the specific limit for the free trial. The content window for connection is approximately 100,000 tokens. This includes your messages. When you use the file folder to create code, that counts against this limit. Let me see the limit. So typically around 200 to 250 queries per day per user. This limit resets daily. Okay, so if you hit the limit, you see notification in the IDE. Okay. For Amazon Q Developer, which is a free trial, it's typically around 500 code generations per month. So it does have its limit for the free trial, which you can see. So basically, you can I just ask it. I can't find the official documentation for that. Yeah, but I think it does, which Amazon Q provided some insights on it. Yeah. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so I mean, it supports most of the popular ideas, which is so cool. So most people don't know about Amazon Q. So the first time I mentioned about Amazon Q to to my CEO, so he was like, "What's that?" Yeah. So I think it's not too popular, but it's actually very powerful, especially from security perspective. So the repository is available. I think Ryan shared that earlier, and you can just go ahead and sign. Yeah, you can just go ahead and sign up on AWS free trial, and you can experiment. Build your own cool stuff, and just share it with the world so we can see stuff you're building, and experiment with the Amazon Q as well. And I don't know if you have any more questions. If we don't, I think we had so much fun today.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Vincent. And I love the great questions in chat.
Yeah.
Thank you for presenting, and I think I learned a lot. I was following along in the code in the background, looking through the repository. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan.
I guess if there are any other questions, or there are no other questions, this will be the end of today's AWS AI Tool stream. Oh, we have another comment from Wei. But yeah, thank you so much, Vincent. I appreciate you taking the time to come on today and teach us about Amazon Q and Bedrock. It was really, really cool to see. And I'm actually going to try out Bedrock right after this. I'm really curious. You've sparked my
Yeah,
curiosity.
I love the curiosity.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone else for showing up. We're going to have an Today in Global Hack Week right after this stream. So hopefully we'll see everybody there in 17 minutes. All right. Thank you all. Take care and have a great Global Hack Week. Happy hacking.
Bye, everyone.